Hey guys, welcome to the January 23rd edition of Reading Through Your Bible Chronologically in 1 year. Yesterday we read Job 15 through 18. I know we have new people today, so welcome. We are so happy you're here. All right, let's start with chapter 15, obviously. Okay, Eliphaz is talking here, one of the least comforting friends in the whole entire universe and in all time. He is talking to Job and, telling him how the world works. Good people get good things and bad people get bad things. And so let's go down to 27 and 28. He says, "These wicked people are heavy and prosperous. Their waists bulge with fat, but their cities will be ruined. They will live in abandoned houses that are ready to tumble down. Their riches will not last," yada, yada, yada. And so here we see him again trying to force the formula. God works like this. Good people, good stuff. Bad people, bad stuff. And so that's, if he would stop and look around for a minute, he would see that that is not the truth. And so, there are evil people who never seem to pay for what they did. And, people who are walking with the Lord, sometimes their lives are really tough. And so, we're thinking, okay, look around, dude. And so right here, he's comforting himself with lies, and we do not want to do that. And so when we are comforting ourselves with the lies, then the truth gets a little scary and we don't really dive into that truth. The problem with that is that Jesus calls himself the way, the truth, and the life. And so if we're unwilling to dive into what that means, all of truth means, we're keeping ourselves at a distance from Christ. We don't want to do that. So we want to ask God, if I'm believing any lies, please show me what they are, show me the truth, and help me walk in that. Moving over to 16:5. Job is now responding, and he says, "If it were me, I would encourage you. I would try to take away your grief." And he's saying, you're just heaping up more grief on me. And this is a picture of what grief can do. And this is one of the gifts of grief I think it's in 1 Corinthians where it says we can comfort those with the comfort we ourselves have received. One of the things that can come out of grief is we are not afraid to jump into somebody else's grief with them and comfort them the way that we were comforted. And so, it's nobody wants to grieve, but we will. There are gifts in it. Moving down to 12 and 13, Job continues on. "I was living quietly until God, shattered me. He took me by the neck and broke me in pieces, and he set me up as his target, and now his archers surround me." And so he still feels targeted by God, and now he's calling his friends archers. And I was talking to my mom earlier this morning, and she was like, well, I know what kind of friend I don't want to be if I have somebody around me who is hurting. And I was like, yeah, right. And as she and I talked, we realized we feel like they are acting out of fear. And if you go back to verse 6:2, you will see that Job says that they are afraid. And my mom and I were thinking, it's as if there's this formula, good equals good and bad people or evil people get bad. And if God were to not operate that way, well, that's scary for them because they consider themselves good. So that means they can suffer. And so that believing that truth would make them afraid. And so they are reacting out of that fear. So again, when we feel that fear rise up, we want to go, let me find some truth about that and let me walk in that truth instead of reacting out of something, creating a lie and walking in that just to make us feel better. All right, and then moving down to verse 16:20. "My friends scorn me, but I pour out my tears to God." And then 17:3, he says, "You must defend my innocence, O God, since no one else will stand up for me." And so we see this deepening of a relationship with God, even though he has questions, even though he's confused, even though he gets to a place where he's like feeling like this is not just. He is still turning to God because he knows that God is the answer. And then over in 18, we get another friend, Bildad, heaping up more shame onto Job and saying, well, you're bad and that's the way the world works. And so that's why you're suffering. And I just sat there and I thought, why does he have to listen to this? And seeing God let him just sit there in his pain. And it just made me think, it's so hard to see God in the midst of pain and suffering when we feel like he could fix it, but he won't. And he seems to be sitting idly by. He's not. He's always up to something, and there is something in that wait. There are some lessons that can only be learned in the wait. And it reminds me of Jeremiah 17:7 and 8, and it says, "Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, whose trust is in the Lord. He is like a tree planted by water that sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when heat comes, for its leaves remain green, and it is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit." And that is my encouragement in my desert times, is that if I'm planted by the Lord's stream, which is Jesus, because he is the living water, if I'm planted by him, coming to him in the word, then I will remain green. I will still bear fruit in my very dry, hot, drought times. And that is our encouragement here, that we stick in there and trust the Lord. Trust God in the wait, because there are lessons in the wait. Okay, that's it. Tomorrow is Job 19 through 21. I'll talk to you then. Bye.